Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Welcome to the Tobacco Impact Youth Mental Health Workshop. We are glad that you are joining us. I am Marissa Frias, the Intervention Specialist with the Tobacco Use Prevention Education Program at Contra Costa County Office of Education. And tonight I also have with me Chelsea Nakatani from our team to assist and support. We are excited for this evening's presentation and for the discussion that will take place. We know that your time is valuable. We appreciate you being here on time and spending some of your time with us tonight. As we get started with the workshop, I would like to review a few of our virtual logistics. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the presentation is being recorded and will be made available. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to add them to the chat box. However, I also know that we will have a portion of this workshop with discussion and question and answer period. So you will have time to participate in group discussion and ask some questions and engage with the presenters. Also, we do encourage your feedback. So there is a survey that we ask you to complete after the workshop. Next slide. So just to tell you a little bit about who we are, the Tobacco Use Prevention Education, or TUPE for short, is a program under the Student Programs Department at the Contra Costa County Office of Education. And our goal is to prevent and reduce youth and tobacco use and nicotine addiction among young people. Our team works alongside all 18 school districts in our county, as well as provides direct services to students in our county office program schools, our court community, and special education schools. Our approach is comprehensive, and it includes programs and activities that engage young people as our partners in prevention through youth development, classroom-based prevention programs in participating middle and high schools with prevention curriculum, support for those currently using tobacco through intervention and cessation services, and staff professional development, family and community engagement, which is what brings us here tonight. Next slide. This is our team of 7. Our county office team provides technical assistance to school districts to develop and implement effective, comprehensive tobacco education programs. We work alongside hundreds of adults and young people who are part of our larger TUPE network, including district administrators, site-level coordinators, curriculum instructors, intervention providers, community partners, and hundreds of peer educators to implement TUPE programs across the county. With all that said, now I have the honor of introducing our presenters. And our presenters tonight are Ade Gobert, Contra Costa County Office of Education Wellness and Schools Program Manager, and Kathy Estrada, Wellness and School Programs Liaison. We are grateful to have both of them here this evening, and I'm going to let them take it away.
Thank you, Marissa, for the warm welcome of introduction. My program manager, Day, and I are so excited to be here with you all today. And thank you for participating in this workshop. Before we begin, I just wanted to give a brief overview of WISP and our program. So the Wellness in Schools program is a grant-funded program through the partnership between County Behavioral Health and the County Office of Education. And our program supports school-based mental health and wellness efforts. So we'll drop in our website so you can get a little bit more information and resources and our contact information if you ever needed to connect with us. So this brings us in to the start of our presentation. We're all here today in a shared space, so we thought we would start with some community agreements. So listen to understand, take risk if you're someone who is shy, don't feel afraid to, take a risk and speak up and voice your concern or opinions. Also make space and take space. So allow others to share and contribute to conversation. And this will lead us to our conversation starter. So We ask you if you can contribute to the chat box or you can be on mute, but let's start the conversation of why do teens smoke or vape or both? So don't be shy and let's get the conversation rolling. So I know that teens might be curious, right? To fit in that peer pressure. Yeah, curiosity, what that might look like, feel like. Yep, social norms, trends, social media, flavors. Yes, appealing flavors. Thank you to the tobacco industry, right? Marketing to teens that, all of these good flavors, peer pressure, feeling that it is normal part of growing up or getting older. Yep, definitely. These are all great contributions. Yeah. Um, and I would also add mental health, right? What is the why? Why are kids doing this? Is there an underlying um, mental health concern that they may be feeling? Are they turning to smoking and vaping to alleviate these symptoms? So this brings us to the next slide of our presentation, right? So we wanted to put this survey results from the Healthy Kids Survey from the academic school year of 2019 and 2021. And the Healthy Kids Survey surveyed 10,540 students, particularly ninth grade, we pulled from this. In the blue, as you can see right here, these are ninth graders who reported feelings of chronic sadness and hopelessness. And then in orange, these are students who reported that they are smoking and also feeling emotions of sadness and despair. And when we take a look at the gray scale, we're seeing that students are vaping, but also have feelings of sadness and hopelessness. And we can see a big jump, right? So 34 students are reporting of feeling unpleasant emotions. And then we jump to 81% of students who are smokers or have smoked also feeling these unpleasant emotions. And then we take a look at vaping and we see 69% of our students out of 10,500 students reporting that they are vaping, but also having feelings of sadness and despair. So what we can take from these results is that there's a strong correlation between using and also feeling strong unpleasant emotions, right? Also facing a mental health concern, right? Are teens using because they feel a mental health concern such as sadness, anxiety, or are they turning to these products to alleviate these symptoms, right? So this brings us to the illusion of nicotine, right? And what nicotine does to the brain, because there's this misinterpret information that, this is a stress reliever, right? And as previously mentioned, the tobacco industry has done a great job at marketing to the youth and society that this is something that's relaxing, that it's good for you. Oh, if you are feeling down, why don't you take a hit, right? It'll make you feel better. But in reality, it's a misconception. So we took a picture that kind of breaks it down a little bit. So nicotine from tobacco, right, enters our brain. And then nicotine causes this release of pleasure-inducing chemicals, also now known as dopamine, like our happy level, right? So we feel good in the moment, right? So then when the brain doesn't get nicotine, dopamine is not being released, right? So this leads to cravings and more tobacco use, right? So many of our youth are unaware that vaping can make or smoking can make their symptoms actually worse, right? And they go back to this fixation that I want to feel happy, right? Because smoking or vaping makes me feel this way. But in reality, it's actually damaging their state of mind. And then they get more anxious and they feel more depressed and more irritable, right? And then in addition to that, you know, it affects our well-being, and how much it can affect depends frequently on how much you smoke and how much you consume. And we can see that this is a vicious cycle, and smoking can also lead to lower levels of dopamine production, which then triggers, that need for a smoke, right? And so there's just this misconception that tobacco or vaping or smoking and vaping, you know, fix and alleviate these concerns, these mental health concerns. And it is then an illusion of a positive coping mechanism when in reality it's not a positive coping mechanism, right? Positive coping mechanisms can look so much differently, that really actually support your well-being and state of mind, right? That can be exercising, that could be reading a book, that could be meditating, right? But those are things and positive strategies that actually help your overall well-being and not from tobacco use. So this brings me to the next slide, which I will pass this over to my program manager, who will talk a little bit more about the connections between nicotine and mental health.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And Marissa, thank you very much for that warm introduction. As we know, as we've learned this evening, nicotine is not healthy for our youths. Nicotine can actually worsen symptoms of depression and anxiety. Like Kathy just told us, when our youth smoke nicotine or when they vape or smoke, they are actually masking symptoms of mental health, right? A lot of the youths report to us, oh, I am stressed, I'm anxious, and so I'm gonna take a puff. I'm vaping because of all this stress and anxiety. But we know that nicotine doesn't resolve those issues. It actually prevents us as students, our youths, from actually dealing with the underlying issue, that why they have the symptoms of mental health is so treatable. The earlier that we deal with mental health situation, the better the prognosis. We know that we all have mental health, just the way we address our physical well-being. It's very important that we are also addressing our mental health. Tobacco increases mental health symptoms. And the way that happens is when you don't address mental health issues, the issue get bigger, right? So if you're feeling stressed and you are not addressing that symptom, and you're vaping, you're masking that symptom, and thereby the stress and anxiety continues to grow. And I also want parents to be aware that tobacco use of tobacco, if your child is on medication, the effectiveness of tobacco also reduces the effectiveness of the medication, I'm sorry, because it does interact with the medication and decrease the medication effectiveness. It's very, very important that we as adults, we know the signs of mental health. If we are going to be supporting our kids around mental health, it's very, very important that we are aware of the signs. There is change in feelings, loss of interest. If your kid is, your student is a basketball player or interest in socializing with others, then lost interest completely, then you should be aware of that. Changing sleeping habits, low energy, difficulty interacting with others, appetite, loss of weight changes, gain or loss, uncontrollable emotions. These are all signs of a mental health issues. And all these signs that we talk about, they are treatable. The earlier that we know, the better that we are able to address the issue, and as students can start feeling better and enjoying all the things that they love to do. Next slide, please. So once we've recognized and we know the signs of symptoms of a mental health concern, it is very, very important that we now observe these signs with our youth. We know, and we now have to develop, what do we do when we see that our kids are exhibiting these signs? And now we recognize that they are vaping or they are smoking to mask this sign, then we have to address it. How do we start a conversation with our kids, right? We need to listen to our kids without making judgments, right? We need to figure out a way to get their attention. Start a conversation with your kids. There was a study that was done among 15-year-olds who are actually facing a lot of challenges. And the kind of challenges that they were facing, a lot of people would assume that they would end up in juvenile hall or become criminals. But some of the students actually, they thrive. And when they look into why they thrive, it's also because they have an adult in their lives who do actually listen to them. So it's been studied over and over. When a youth has a trusted adult, if they have an adult that they can actually talk to, it makes the situation so much better. So how do we start a conversation with our youth? We can start practicing asking our youth, how are you feeling? Rather than how are you doing? What interests you in school today? Rather than saying, how was school today? So we have to engage them in conversation. And when we start to engage our kids in conversation, they're going to talk to us. And at times we might not want to hear what they're going to say to us, but we still need to listen. We need to listen without judgment, because that's when we can actually support them. It is very, very important that we also know the resources within our community. We need to know where to go when our kids come to us for any issues at all. Schools is very challenging right now, right? There are pressure from school, peer pressure, social media, all kinds of things. So we need to know that when they come to us, we also as adults, we need to know where to reach out for support as well. I also say that kids, we as parents or teachers, professional adults, that our kids look forward to us. The youths are looking at us. How are we coping with our own challenges? Who do we talk to? What are we modeling for our kids? So it is very, very important that we are the coaches and we model positive behaviors for our kids. There are a lot of symptoms like we talked earlier on, and with all these symptoms, there are several ways of coping, developing positive skills, right? What do your youths like to do? Kathy mentioned about reading. Some kids are interested in cooking. They like to, maybe you want to take a Zumba class with your kids. There's so many ways and so many things that we can do to engage our kids. And also to allow them to relieve stress, whatever that it is that they are struggling with. If it's peer pressure, it might be helpful for us to also talk to our kids about when we were growing up too. What kind of peer pressure did you face and how did you deal with that? Right? It is nice for them to know that they are not going to be, they're not the first person to actually go through social pressure, and that we did actually go through high school, middle school, and we develop some really coping mechanism to deal with all these issues. And when it all fails, we should be able to get help within our community. Let's seek resources for our kids. Therapy is another way to actually deal with mental issue that is not going away. There are resources here. Thank you, Kathy, for sharing this list of resources. Mental Health America, Suicide Prevention Lifeline as well is available. There is Contra Costa Crisis Center. NAMI Contra Costa is also a very good nonprofit organization that do provide outreach, education, support for family, and advocacy. Please don't let stigma of mental health stop you from getting treatment. And I thank you so much for your time with us today. I'm going to pass it back to Marissa.
Thank you so much, Kathy and Ade. That was wonderful. I know it's a lot of information in such a short period of time, and that's why we wanted to make sure we shared a lot of resources. But just remember, we are going to have a discussion and questions after this. I just wanted to share some of our resources as well. We have our TUPE website. On our TUPE website, we do have a family and community engagement section that has some of our video series from previous webinars and workshops that we have. There's also the Contra Costa County Crisis Center that has resources and referral center. We have Kick It California, which is a resource free program to quit smoking, vaping, and smokeless tobacco. And that's for adults and young people. And then we have the Tobacco Prevention Toolkit and Cannabis Awareness Prevention Toolkit. And this is a curriculum that is taught in the classrooms. There's also a parent portion in there. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I encourage you to check that out. And there's some tips for parents on how to engage with young people about cannabis and tobacco. So thank you for joining us this evening.